contest, as you know, is the evaluation contest. And evaluation is at the heart of the Toastmasters program. We join a Toastmasters club because we are terrified of speaking in front of an audience and making a fool of ourselves. But isn't it amazing that in a very short time, we drop our ums and ahs, we learn to speak with confidence, we listen to each other, we develop empathy, and we help each other become good speakers. That's the magic of a Toastmaster club. And the magician is your evaluator. There is no teacher in the club, so it's the evaluator who has the huge responsibility to help each one of us gain confidence and become better speakers. The evaluator listens very attentively to you. He will give you his honest reaction, focus on your strengths, give you suggestions to improve, encourage you to grow, and inspires you to climb mountains. And today we will see that live with our excellent evaluators. So now we are going to have our speaker come in and speak. Our speaker today is Tammy Garner. Could I please have Tammy come up? Oh, okay. So can you give her a round of applause?
Let's do a mic test right quick. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes.
In the back? Very good. Our Toastmaster didn't give you the title of the speech. The title of the speech is Buying a Car. We live in Texas. Specifically, we live in Houston, Texas. And folks who move here are soon overwhelmed by the fact that they must have some sort of vehicle to get around. I know folks from Chicago that move here, New York, even Austin. You can't get anywhere without a car in this town. Well, I don't know about you, but I kind of like having a new car. You know that feeling. As a matter of fact, one of the favorite things my nephew, my number one nephew, and I do is go to the car show every year in January. We kick the tires, we get in the back seats to see how much legroom. I'm so short, it really doesn't matter. But at my increasing maturity age, I like to see, is it easy to get in and out of the back seat? But the thing I want to share with you tonight, 3 things about buying a new car. Number 1, recognizing new car fever. Number 2, financing a new car. There are a lot of steps you can go through to make it a painless process. And finally, we're going to talk about making that deal. You finally have to sit down one-on-one with someone that you don't even know that wants to take a lot of money from you, right? You want to be in charge of that situation. So let's look at that new car fever. I know every once in a while, every few years, after I go to the car show, I might see a new model, something I haven't seen before, or a color I haven't seen before. The smell alone is intoxicating. And I get new car fever. I've bought pre-owned cars and I've enjoyed them, but there's something about having a car that has only 12 miles on it when you get it. The thing you have to be careful of is just buying a car that you don't know anything about. What's really good now is on the internet, there are so many different resources that we have to evaluate cars. And I just want to make this suggestion. Make decisions ahead of time when you're in the heat of the fever of what you need a vehicle for. I'll give you an example of something that happened just recently to someone I know. There's a young man that works in my office, emphasis on the young man, and he had a Nissan sporty style car. Now he has to do road work, which means he goes out to see clients, and sometimes he has to deliver equipment. Well, his small trunk and a coupe vehicle with no back seat was not really conducive to delivering any kind of equipment. We do IT work. So he decided he was going to have to get a new car. He was going to have to get another car. And so we started talking about cars because I love talking about cars. I had 3 brothers. Do you need to know that first? I had 3 brothers. So this is how I love cars. But we start talking about what kind of car are you going to get, guy? I don't know. I'm thinking about a Camaro. Wait a minute, wait. I thought you were looking for something that you could get equipment in the back of. Yeah, it'll have more trunk space than what I have now. I said, I don't think it's still going to be enough, brother. Then we talked about a Mustang, because a Mustang at least has a back seat. Of course, he wasn't going to get an SUV. He's not, he's not a soccer mom or a soccer dad. Dude comes in 2 weeks later with a 2-year-old Camaro. Gorgeous car, paper plates, brand new car. I said, well, it'll be really interesting when we have a color printer to deliver in the back of your car. And what happened, no less than 5 days after he shows up with that Camaro with no trunk, we needed to deliver from the Willowbrook area to Katy, Texas, a big old color printer. They tried every way in the world to, even in the driver's seat, they tried to put this printer just to get it to Katy, Texas. Who ends up taking the printer to Katy, Texas? The person with the sensible Honda SUV. Because when I had car fever, I made a sensible decision. I wanted to get a car. I knew sometime, since I'm single and I don't have a husband with a truck, or even any of my brothers have any trucks, I know from time to time I'm going to have to haul something. I got a little small SUV and I took that printer all the way to Katy, Texas. And he's looking there with his fine looking Camaro. I'm going, here's your printer, man. The next thing that really gets us involved is that deal. We're sitting there across first from the salesperson, and what does he do? He goes in and he gets his sales manager to start flipping the numbers on you. You know that section of time when you're pushing that piece of paper across the desk from each other? What's your figure? Here's my figure. I can't do that. Well, we can't do that. Have you ever walked away from a deal? Have you done that? I'm seeing heads go up and down. Yes, that's awesome, because that was one of my main points I wanted to make today. Don't be afraid to walk away from a deal if it's not a good deal for you. Because these folks, they're just trying to clear inventory. They don't care. They just want to get you in that car and down the road. It was really embarrassing one night at 9 o'clock at night when I had to tell somebody, I need my keys to my truck. I'm not buying your SUV. I need my keys to my truck. Well, they've already closed up back there. I said, well, you better open them back up, because I'm not driving your car home. Because we couldn't do the deal. It's really important to make sure that you're in the driver's seat when you make the deal. And don't buy a car that doesn't, you've already had the new car fever, you've decided on the car or the vehicle that's best for your needs. Make sure you stick to your guns. And the most difficult part for some of us, especially when I was younger, is the financing. The thing that I've learned is pre-finance. Always go into your bank or credit union, or mom or dad, whatever your bank is, and pre-arrange your financing. You don't want to get to that final part of the deal, and then they pull a switch on you and they say, well, we can get you this kind of deal, this kind of interest rate, and you don't even know what your credit rating is. Do all your homework first. Buying a new car, having new car fever is not a bad thing. It can actually be kind of fun and exhilarating. But you have to, number one, know what you want to buy. Don't just get caught up in the fever. Number two, do your financing. And finally, make a great deal. Madam Toastmaster.
Evaluation contestant number 1. Evaluation contestant number 1, Colette Hutchins.
Madam Toastmistress, fellow Toastmasters, Tammy. I want to share an evaluation based upon a specific method that I learned from a fellow Toastmaster that is called the PIP. The first being that I start out with praise. Then I go on with I, which is improvement. And then finally, I go back to P, just to wrap it all up with more praise. So starting out with P for praise. I love your gestures, Tammy. Your hands were in a place where they were moving naturally, but they weren't stiff. It was very flowing, and it was wonderful to see. You also had some great questions that drew us in. My favorite, and I'm sure many others probably agree, was, have you ever walked away from a deal? I mean, seriously, we all know what it's like to buy a car, or at least I think most of us do anyway. And sitting in that seat, to be able to walk away from something when the salesman or the finance guy is manipulating you, that's hard. Also, I really love the imagery that you showed us. For example, one of the things that you said was, you want to be in the driver's seat. Well, how appropriate. We're talking about cars here. So, you want to be in control, you want to be in the driver's seat. That makes absolute sense. Going on to part I, for improvements. I have to admit, for a little while, I was having a really hard time finding some things. However, I was able to pinpoint some things that I personally would have liked to have seen. First, as your gestures, like I said before, I did like them, but I did notice, there were times when you noticed, you said there were 3 things, and it would have been nice to have seen you say first, and emphasize that, second, third, and just use a little bit bigger gestures in that. Also, your story, while it was amazing, I loved it. And by the way, my husband's a computer guy, so I'm familiar with a lot of that computer stuff that you're talking about, having heard many stories. I was noticing that in the story of the printer, I could just see you with this big old printer and your coworker in his Camaro. He wanted to insert it, and I thought, gosh, it would have been great to see that extra gesture of, oh, just trying to see him pry that thing in there. And of course, not working and going to your car. To finalize it, your closing, you ended it very concisely, so that would be my last P. Finally, you make a good deal. It was concise, it wrapped things up very neatly. Because when you're prepared, you make a good deal. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Suzanne Dustling, evaluation contestant number 2. Evaluation contestant number 2, Suzanne Dustling.
Buying a car is just like going on a trip. Tammy took us on a trip about her car buying experience. Think about when you take a trip. The first thing you have to do, you have to think about where you're going. Well, Tammy told us where we were going initially. She shared a story about her nephew and how they like to go out and buy cars. That experience enabled her to tell us where we are going today. And that's very important, You must have a roadmap of where you're going. She told us that we are going to learn about new car fever, making a deal, and about financing. Just like when you take a trip, you have to think about where you're going, right? You have to plan, then you have to decide where you're going, how you're going to get there. You have to buy clothes, you have to buy all that other stuff. Well, Tammy did an excellent job of weaving stories with facts. How many speakers do you know that do a great job of weaving stories with facts? And once again, as we go on this trip, we see all kinds of sights, right? Like flowers and birds and the sunshine. Well, Tammy gave us those flowers and the birds and the sunshine by her descriptive word pictures. We were all taught, we were all engaged when she used words such as new car fever, the driver's seat. How about mom and dad at the bank? She had lots of humor in her presentation. But then, just like when we take trips, there are detours. One suggestion I would love for Tammy to make is when she opened, she did take us on a story, but I wasn't quite sure where that story was going to actually truly start. And then when she concluded, we all learned in Toastmasters that we must tell them where you're going, tell them, and then tell them what you told them. She did recap the 3 facts of her story that she shared with us. However, she forgot or failed to mention a call to action. Perhaps she was like, buy that new car today. I already gave you all these wonderful facts. Overall, humor, storytelling, and facts, that to me was the triple trifecta. She hit a home run.
Marcus Taylor, evaluation contestant number 3. Evaluation contestant number 3, Marcus Taylor.
It's important to make sure that you're in the driver's seat at all times. This line encapsulated everything in this particular speech. In the absence of knowledge, we are in control of our decisions. We are in control of who to contact, who to reach out to, where to research, and most importantly, to tell that kid to not buy that Camaro. It's our responsibility. So I'd like to break this down because we are in control of our destinations, and today I'll be in control of the destinations we will hit today. And I'll break it down to 3 simple letters. W-I-N, win. To break this down a little bit, W, what was done well? I, what could be improved upon a little bit? And then N, where you nailed it in this speech. So let's talk about W. To put it lightly, the vocals were loud and clear. From the get-go, there was an authoritative, commanding presence in this room. Everyone stood up, including I even went as soon as I heard it. Throats. That is a powerful skill to have, especially when you want to deliver a speech that is compelling, informative, and also has a good sense of humor on the side. That's a very powerful skill overall. Definitely keep that. Now for the improvements part a little bit. This I only caught this a couple of times, so take this with a pinch of salt and a stick of pepper. But the body language in certain spots could be a bit more exaggerated. I caught 3, for example, when you said young man, emphasis on young. I was thinking you were going to say young man, emphasis on young, or something like that, something like or this. Young man. Or maybe something along the lines of, for a wide trunk for this car. Or when you're lugging stuff into this trunk. Just wider stances add a little bit of comedic effect to it, but it also allows people to empathize with what's being stated. And then for the last part, where you nailed it. Now this is the part where I will say, just straight up, the blend of anecdotes, humor, and also some street smarts was overall just a blast to listen to. At no point did it feel stunted, jarring, or strange. There were no potholes along the way. There were no moments where you're like, I almost hit that car in front of me, in terms of just stalling or any changes. Everything felt smooth, buttery, like a freshly paved road at the end of the day. And so, I conclude with the following statement, or following statements. We've gone through this journey together, but at the end of the day, we are in control of our decisions. Once we punch in that destination to Google Maps, we have that control. And at the end of the day, you will hear that favorite chime, you have arrived. Thank you very much.
Sarah Earhart, evaluation contestant number 4. Evaluation contestant number 4, Sarah Earhart.
Esteemed judges, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests, and especially to you, Tammy. I loved your speech. I loved the subject of your speech. At first, I was slightly concerned it might be a little bit boring. We all buy cars. How could this be an interesting topic? But it really was. She brought it to life. I love how Tammy used her storytelling capabilities and her sense of humor to create pictures in our mind that we could all relate to. This subject is something we all have done at some point in our life. And so we can all understand where she was coming from and these experiences that she had had. Tammy's use of humor was extremely clever. It was sneaky. She would sneak it in here and sneak it in there, and it wasn't in your face, but it's something we could all relate to yet again. So it was humorous and funny and kept us going along with her speech and kept our attention. The one thing that I thought that Tammy could do to possibly improve her speech a little bit would be to change her speech title. A speech title is supposed to grab our interest right off the bat. It's supposed to be the thing that gets us interested in what someone's going to say. And her title, Buying a Car, told us what she was going to talk about. So my suggestion would be to change it. Maybe Don't Catch the Fever, something along those lines. And the second thing that I thought she could do to possibly improve just a little bit would be to really think about vocal variety and playing with her voice when she's talking about certain people. For instance, when she was talking about the young man that was selling her the car, maybe she could say that in an accent like, oh, that young man that was trying to sell me that car, something along those lines. It would help us really become more engaged in her speech because she's using her voice to draw in her audience. Overall, excellent speech. I greatly enjoyed it. It was super engaging, a topic that we all could relate to. She used her storytelling capabilities to create these pictures that we all could understand and enjoy. Madam Toastmaster.
We had one time disqualification. Our third place winner is Susanna Dustling. Please stay up here so that we can have all the winners up here at the same time. Our second place winner is Sarah Earhart. And our first first place winner is Marcus Taylor. We could have all of our winners here so we can get a nice picture. Have you got your picture yet? Good, Jonetta?